Can the Atlanta Falcons stay committed to the run, or will Desmond Ridder have to do more of the heavy lifting to beat the Bucs in a must-win Week 14 matchup?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. A few minutes ago, I placed my very own DoorDash order to my favorite local meal from Tasty Stop here in Durham, North Carolina. It should be here before the show is over. So a big thank you to DoorDash for my dinner. Place your order today using the promo code LOCK23. And stay tuned later in the episode to hear more from our friends at DoorDash. So if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman. I've been covering the Falcons for too long over at falcfans.com, RIP. And I'm, of course, to wrap up the week, joined by Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta, who spent his Thursday flexing his random Falcon player knowledge on Twitter. And, of course, you can find Jarvis on Twitter if you want to just spout. He spent 7 hours doing that, but he just told me before we recorded that he could do it for 17 hours. So keep throwing more names at him at Jarvis D90 on Twitter. But of course, as usual, each and every week we talk with Jarvis to talk about sort of keys to victory for the upcoming Falcons matchup. And of course, with the Falcons taking on the Tampa Bay Bucs in a must-win sort of game for the right to be in first place in the world's worst division in all of sports. No, I'm kidding. But
not too far off.
Yeah, it's not that far. But the Jarvis, in this must-win game, sort of for you, what is the Falcons' biggest key to victory?
I think that when we think about the commitment to the run game, I mean, obviously we saw it last week, but it didn't quite work out the way they wanted to. Obviously, I'm sure Arthur Smith would want a little bit more production than they got out of the run game last week, but they stayed committed to it. And, and they were able to play clean. Playing clean is the biggest thing that they need to make sure that they don't do, because the last time you fumbled the ball 3 times and you still were able to get a win. This time around, I don't think that's going to be the case, because it just doesn't, the ball doesn't just bounce that way, consistently like that, especially when you turn the ball over. And, being that it's a home game, normally, Ridder plays pretty decent at home. So I think that having Bijan Robinson this time around, all things considered, no random headaches or anything like that, before the game. And I think a commitment to the run game, I feel like the Falcons can, dare I say, before they went on that 3-game losing streak, I talked about that W word. This is a W word game. And, so it's playing clean and staying committed to the run game. I really feel like the Falcons can get this one.
Okay. And, we'll see. We'll see if the run game is working. I'm not very optimistic. I feel like this is going to be a game where Ridder's going to have to carry more of the burden, just because I am concerned about.
Do we really want that?
I mean, no. Do we want it? No. But do we kind of need it? I kind of think the Falcons do.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Because here's the thing, okay, so let me ask you this. I'm gonna put you on the couch real quick. All right.
Okay.
Do you feel like Kyle Pitts is fully healthy?
I think he's close enough.
Okay. Do you feel Kyle Pitts has, based off his play this year in 2023, do you feel like he can beat number 1 or number 2 corners deep?
Deep? No, not this year.
So I guess, my point is on that is the fact that this is the type of game that I feel they need to start seeing Kyle Pitts used in the manner of where he can be in a position to have an advantage. And I don't think that he can have an advantage lining up outside consistently, right? Okay. And I think that, with Mac Hollins returning, that gives you a little freedom to be able to do that. Not saying Mac Hollins is just going to have, 2 high safeties and, they're scared of being beat over the top with 18 in the game. I'm not saying that, but I am saying somebody who plays the wide receiver position, he can get you a 70-30 ball. You know what I mean? He can probably go up and go get that for you. And you have the other threat of Drake London on the other side. And you have Kyle Pitts lined up on inside or with his hand in the dirt, running routes against a linebacker or a safety. I like that matchup a little bit better. So I think putting him in a position to be able to win, I feel that Ridder having to throw the football or Ridder being in a position where you might have to lean on him a little bit more than you want to, given that, Tampa Bay traditionally has been pretty solid against the run. I don't mind that, notion. But if we're saying that we can put 8 in the box and we ain't worried about 8 lined up there on the outside and Drake London lined up on the other side, and we can lock up and say, hey, man, y'all just going to have to beat us one-on-one, that advantage might skew towards Tampa Bay.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. I don't sit here confident that the Falcons will do it. I think they can do it. My guy Scotty Miller, had a big catch last time they played the Bucs. So, maybe.
Hey man, look, Skeet and Scotty, man. Somebody got to get the man to rock, man. Stop playing around. That's why you brought him in.
And Van Jefferson. We're waiting on Van Jefferson to have that big catch, that big game. Maybe this is the week. So we'll
might keep waiting on that one.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. But part of the reason why I'm not very confident in the run game this weekend, because if Kaleb McGary misses this game, I talked about this earlier this week. I don't think Storm Norton is filling no shoes, and so I'm just like, we got to rely on Jake Matthews and Matthew Bergeron to kind of carry the run game at this point. And I'm just like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Yeah, man. Because Bergeron had a pretty rough one last week. And to be honest with you, you're going against Quentin Williams on a consistent basis. That's just probably what's just going to happen when you go up against an all-world defensive tackle like that. So I think them being in a position where, like, you have your best your best tackle, run blocking tackle, potentially out, that's going to have an effect. Like, regardless of what Storm Norton did, I feel like he did a fine job, filling in last week against the Jets. But yeah, when you lose Kaleb McGary, there's going to be a drop off when it comes to the running game for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll talk more about these potential injuries and how they will impact this game, and which of these players is Kaleb McGary? Is it David Onyemata? Is it the corners? Whoever? We'll get Jarvis's thoughts on which players, potential absence could impact this upcoming Week 14 matchup between the Falcons and Bucs the most. And we'll get into that as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. So as I told you guys at the top of the show, I ordered lemon pepper wings from my favorite spot on DoorDash from Tasty Stop here in Durham, North Carolina. And it just got here just as we were going to break. And I got the proof right here, guys. I got the bag. They're in the bag. You can hear the styrofoam, right? I'm not going to show you because
they got the authentic bag too, like fancy bag.
It's a little leaking, but I'll be eating that dinner from my favorite spot. Thanks to DoorDash after the podcast is over, and you can find your faves on DoorDash, whether you're looking for restaurant, stores, retail to grocery. It's all on the app, so you can shop for everything, and you can get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23, subject to change, terms apply. That's 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23. Just think of all the wings you can buy when you get, like $15 or more, you drop 20 in, you get $10 off. all those
Lemon
wings
pepper
for half
wet.
off.
Yes.
It's a great value. So don't forget to use that code LOCK23 for 50% off up to a $10 value when you on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and spend $15 or more. Subject to change, terms apply. So, guys, continuing today's Locked On Falcons episode, we will be talking more about the Falcons injuries. But before we get there, I do want to plug the innovative and iconic Locked On Podcast Network, who have started the first ever of its kind 24/7 streaming YouTube channel with Locked On Sports Today, covering all the leagues, all the sports, get all the local experts, all that analysis and more on Locked On Sports Today 24/7. Any day, you're sitting there in your bed at 3 a.m. You're like, what's going on? What's Luke Braun have to say and Ross Jackson have to say on Locked On NFL? Check out Locked On Sports Today, it might be there. Or, you're checking out Locked On NBA, all that stuff and more. So check it out, Locked On Sports Today. And of course, check out Locked On Sports Atlanta, who also has a 24/7 streaming channel. So you get all that local insight with all that's going on with the Hawks, the Bulldogs, the Falcons, etc. So, Jarvis, we just talked a little bit about the potential impact of Kaleb McGary negatively impacting this team's ability to run the football. I ask you, given that the Falcons may be down potentially 6 starters this week, right? David Onyemata missed both days of practice. Nate Landman, Kaleb McGary missed both days of practice. AJ Terrell is limited with still in the concussion protocol, so who knows if he'll clear that by Sunday. Jeff Okudah is limited with an ankle injury, and I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody else that is also hurt. But of those players, which one do you feel like should that player not play on Sunday will hurt the Falcons the most?
Wow. Given the potential, because most of the time, it takes the guys to a week, to clear concussion protocol, unless you're Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan wants you to play. They don't give a crap about you having a concussion. So if you're talking about AJ Terrell and, Jeff Okudah did not participate today and on Thursday, at practice on Thursday. So when you have potentially starting corners and, Mike Hughes participated. So we talking about Clark Phillips and Mike Hughes, and then potentially having D Alford at the Nick, that is, I'm concerned. Because even though, the corner, AJ Terrell was healthy last time they played Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans still got a little busy early on, So I think that, and then we got all of the drama about Chris Godwin and Todd Bowles and all that extra stuff going on about him getting the football. One thing that I've learned, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, or whatever the saying is. So, especially when it comes to wide receivers, if you get guys complaining, about, through other back channels, his wife and all that stuff. But when you get those type of things happen, a lot of times those guys get the rock that following game. So, and we know Chris Godwin has done a number on the Falcons secondary in these since he stepped up, put on a Tampa Bay Bucs uniform. So that's my biggest concern. You got AJ Terrell in concussion protocol. I mean, he's going through it, but a lot of times those guys don't come back the following week. But if he is, I'm not that concerned. But if he isn't, and then you got Jeff Okudah, who hasn't practiced past couple of days, that's where I start to get concerned. That's when you feel like this is the type of game that Baker Mayfield can take advantage of,
Yeah. Drew Dahlman was the sixth person that I forgot that was limited on Thursday with his ankle injury. But yeah, I mean, David Onyemata is another one that I feel like, just because who else is getting after the quarterback if it's not David Onyemata? And
Kale London, he's back. Yes, Kentavious Street.
And it's just
Albert Huggins.
You got Tristan Wirfs and Luke Gadecki, or whatever his name is, the right tackle, who's been pretty solid this year. So it's the Falcons' edge rushers have been better the last couple of weeks, but are they good enough to beat Tristan Wirfs? I'm like, I don't know about that.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good.
So if Onyemata's not out there, then you're talking about the secondary and who's going to be covering those guys, and then it's is Baker Mayfield have all the time to throw? So it's just like, yeah, man, like my hope is that we get some good news on Friday that some of these guys, will get elevated to probable or questionable or something rather than doubtful or out. But yeah, it's going to be a challenge. And again, this is why I think you're going to need, even if they can get the run game going, I do think you're going to need Desmond Ridder to have a big game, because this might be a game where the Falcons have to score a lot of points.
They haven't scored 30 points all year.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
Now,
that what scares me. That scares me.
Well,
that really scares me.
What I will say, Jarvis, we did say, I recall that Bucs game, we talked about how that should have been a 30 burger if they hadn't done the boneheaded
turnovers. Yes.
Yeah, right.
Fair,
so it's like, just
it could happen.
Do it again. Just don't turn the ball over. Hold on to the football. I don't know. Maybe just call me crazy. I don't know. But when you're going into the end zone, hold the ball. 5
switch hands.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, not slap hands, but switch hands. Switch hands. And that's the thing, man. Like, we don't ask for much. When it comes to this football thing here in the city of Atlanta, like, we don't ask for much. Like, play clean, and you got a shot. Like, even all the injuries that you're dealing with, right? You still, if you play clean, you still can be pretty much better than this team. Like, there are some weak links now. There, like you said, if you're missing CB1 and CB2, yeah, it might be a long day. Especially if you're not stout against the run, which could happen too, because if 9-0 ain't in there causing havoc and being disruptive, that could happen. So this injury report is going to be very, very important, and the way Desmond Ridder handles the football is going to be important, because we know, like you mentioned at the top of the show, it's a must-win game. Like, you got to put your foot on certain people's necks in order to get into the playoffs. And it starts with this below-average team in Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Look, the thing that gives me hope and optimism, and I forget this every time before we play the Bucs, and then I watch a couple of Bucs games, and I'm like, oh yeah, they have Baker Mayfield, and he's not good, right? Now I know there's Bucs fans that are saying like they have Desmond Ridder and he's not good, and I'm like, okay, touche. But
fair, yeah.
But like, I feel like, the thing I will say to the two Bucs fans listening right now, right, is Baker Mayfield has started 80. This is, I think, is going to be his 82nd start in the NFL, and this is going to be Desmond Ridder's 15th start in the NFL. And they're basically the same. And it's like, what Baker is, at least in theory. Again, whether this is the reality that we'll live in, we'll find out over time. In theory, Desmond Ridder can get better than what he is right now. He can go beyond Baker Mayfield, right?
Yeah.
If
you got the same level as a below average quarterback, average or average, below average.
Yeah.
I call Baker Mayfield below average.
Yeah.
To, that B word that you used earlier,
Mm-hmm.
But, some people make the case for, something else. But I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with. But yeah, if it's Ridder is a very interesting case. I feel like he can get better. I'm confident in saying that. But what does better look like? Because I feel like the ceiling was low, when they drafted him. I was like, I don't know if you're going to get too much better than what you already seeing. And then here we are, 15 games in. If better is maybe not throwing 12 picks on a year and to maybe 7, but is it that other number going to be much more? Like, if you talk about 15 or 18 or 17 touchdown picks, I mean, that's what you want at your face of your franchise. So, I mean, that's obviously a conversation for in the offseason, but I think right now in this game coming up, Desmond Ridder has to outplay Baker Mayfield, period.
Yeah, definitely. So we will see if that is the case. We've talked quite a bit about some of the players that may be absent in this upcoming game, but that gives opportunities for some players to step up and make some plays. Is that a LaCale London who's coming back from IR? Is that a Kentavious Street? Is that an Arnold Ebiketie? Whoever it may be, we'll pick Jarvis's brain on that as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So first, guys, I want to tell you about PrizePicks, the exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And now that basketball season is here, they have introduced a fun little feature. It's their specials league. It's where you can combine projections from different sports, different leagues, right? Like, for example, you can combine like LeBron James and Travis Kelce for a combination of 3 points made in receptions, right? So if you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with PrizePicks. It's simple to play. Just pick 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats. And the more entries you make, the more money you can make, up to 25 times your money. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are why PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. So we are wrapping up today's Locked On Falcons, and I do want to plug the Locked On Falcons Insiders, right? If you are, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a fun little feature where we can get that one-on-one correspondence. You can go beyond being an everydayer to being an insider, and just to entice you a little bit more, I do these extended all 22 reviews. You get the regular podcast each week, but in the extended one, you get in-depth analysis, you get video breakdowns of the games this past week, 24 plays from this Jets game, almost an hour of video content breaking down 10 plays from Desmond Ridder, 3 plays from Storm Norton, and why I have some concerns. Jeff Okudah, some technical tweaks that he needs to get better. I talked about Tim Boyle's struggles. Jesse Bates is basically a cheater because he will bail on helping out any of his fellow secondary players to get an interception, and it's fun to look at. And of course, Parker Hesse doing his thing, not as a tight end, but as a fullback in this Jets game, and big reason why the Falcons' second half running game looked a lot better than their first half running game. And that's all available for you as a Locked On Falcons insider, and you can join that by going to the link in the description below at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnFalcons. And of course, in addition to that, you get that one-on-one correspondence with me. It's like basically texting me whenever you want. We can swap, Christmas recipes or something like that. So whatever you want, check that out. It's a 14-day free trial, $4.99 a month, but that is there for you guys in the link in the description below. And I'm also working on a reel for Clark Phillips's, performance against the Jets as well. So that should be available this weekend for those Locked On Falcons insiders as well. So all that to say, let's talk about this upcoming game, Jarvis. And we talked about the Falcons, injury concerns, and that means the depth is going to be tested. So who are maybe some of these more obscure players, whether they're, potentially going to be starting this game in replacement for some of those injured players, or just maybe another player at another position that's going to have to pick up the slack? We already kind of talked about how Desmond Ridder might have to carry more of the burden of putting points on the board because of some of the deficiencies elsewhere on the roster. Who are some other guys that would make that list for you?
Oh, it would have to be Andre Smith, right? Like the linebacker, he got a chance to, get a couple snaps in, and then as soon as he got in the game, the Jets immediately went his way, and they were able to take advantage of a throw underneath. So for me, like, I think that we got a little peek into Clark Phillips. I think Clark Phillips is going to be huge this weekend. If, like you said, if you have AJ Terrell doesn't clear concussion protocol, and Jeff Okudah, so Clark Phillips is going to be big. And also, I really, what Mike Hughes is going to be back. He's obviously back, and I think that that's going to be something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, because we know what his capabilities are. We know why he was, allowed to, be a free agent. So I think that him getting extended playing time, he's going to have to step up, because, hey, the Falcons took a chance on you bringing in here for that whole depth piece, because that's been their thing. Terry and Arthur, like, hey, I depth this what we needed, what we able to go out and go get. So this is going to be a huge test in the secondary, like I mentioned, if those guys aren't able to go.
Sounds like your daughter is having some issues with but she's thinking Mike Evans is going to do this Falcon secondary this weekend.
Yes. Or it might be Clark Phillips crying. It might be a precursor to what we're gonna see Clark Phillips doing in the first half of the game.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. If who's going to be wailing on Sunday around 1:30 p.m. or whatever. So we'll see what's going on with that. But yeah, I think this is going to be a challenge. Arthur Smith already mentioned it earlier this week that this is what depth is for, and the reason why we're making a big deal about this for those of you. It's because this is really the first game where this has been a major issue for the Falcons. They have had a pretty clean bill of health throughout the season. They've had injury luck being on their side. And so I guess, sometimes that luck swings, the pendulum swings the other way. So we'll see what challenges the Falcons are overcome. But again, I think this is going to be an important game because we've been talking for the last month or so, if this team wants to be considered a serious playoff tender and not just a team that's just there with a participation trophy because you won this awful division and just there to just show up and get the brakes beat off of you by the Cowboys or the Eagles or whoever is that 5 seed come January. You got to be able to overcome these things. You got to show something, right? You got to build towards it. We know that this team is not prepared to beat one of those teams right now or be competitive against one of those teams right now. But the hope is maybe in a month's time, as the season closes out, this team will start to look like that, and overcoming some of this adversity that they'll deal with against Tampa Bay this weekend, I think is going to be a great first step to show that they are ready for a sort of elevated level of competition. So we'll see what's what with this Atlanta Falcons team. We will duck out of here on that as the wails of children in the background are already preparing you for.
Yes, man. This is to give the people, listeners a peek into it, because this is how we keep it funky on this show on Locked On Falcons. Appreciate you always having me. Man, we just gotta keep it real. So the wife is out of town, so I got daddy duties, pick up from school and all that stuff, man. So you try to set up a scenario where they can be quiet and chill and do all that stuff for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then sometimes it just goes. It worked out earlier, but now it's just, it was just off the rails. And my 7-year-old is trying, but it is what it is, man. And we appreciate you guys for your patience and dealing with. That's not Clark Phillips, by the way. Going up against Mike Evans. We hope it's not. But
all right,
this is kind of where we are, man.
That's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna let Jarvis go so he can deal with that. I'm gonna eat these wings, and that's gonna do it for us, guys. Of course, check out the Locked On Falcons Insiders in the link description below. Check out Locked On Sports Today, Locked On Sports Atlanta. Of course, we'll be back on Sunday with a post-cast recap of this Falcons win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll see. That's going to do it for us, guys. Really appreciate it. Till then.